Hello everyone, and welcome to another rousing episode of Spill the Tea Tuesday. My name is Flossie and I'm a manifestation coach. If you'd like some one-on-one coaching with me, links will be in the description box below. I also have an SP course. It's 3 courses in one. I talk about how to become a master manifesting, how to create the perfect version of you, and how to recreate your relationship, manifest your specific person, and keep that relationship for good, period. So, as you guys always know, I created a post and I asked what you want to talk about, and I picked the most requested topics and the ones most interesting to me. Grab a chair, take a seat, because you know I'm going to be dropping deets all about manifestation. So let's get started. A lot of you guys want to know about clean mental diet, like how not to waver from it. I think I got like 8 or 10 questions just on clean mental diet, or at least that's what they boiled down to. So you know the deal, rapid style, I'm going to answer your questions. So let's go. Clean mental diet, how not to waver. Negative, obsessive thought patterns, irrational about manifestation, fears and phobias. You want a clean mental diet? You keep your thoughts in line with your manifestation. Not to waver, every time you start thinking about something that's not what you want to have in your 3D reality, you change your thought pattern. So it ends up that you have to develop becoming the observer. There is a part of you that's able to observe what you're thinking, because we're thinking thoughts, and then there's another part of us that's like, oh, I just was thinking about XYZ. That's like the part of you that can be the observer. And so you train yourself how to become that observer on a more frequent basis. And so when you're thinking, keep reminding yourself, what am I thinking about? What am I thinking about? Start checking those thoughts. And when you notice you're not thinking thoughts in line with your manifestation, you change it. That's how to really keep a clean mental diet, is you make sure that your focus is always on what you want to experience. You don't let your mind wander into the 3D hood shit bullshit that you don't want, right? Because you don't want that. Of course not. That shit goes in the trash where it belongs. Negative, obsessive thought patterns, irrational about your manifestation, that's your ego trying to protect you. Your ego has a role, and that is it takes your previous experiences, what you've been told by other people, what you see, hear, or what you think you see and hear, and it creates what it believes to be how the world works. And so your ego's, one of its roles is to protect you, to keep you out of danger. And so when you're manifesting, your mind is wanting to protect you, even if it's just from pain. And so it's going to be like, oh, this isn't going to happen, or it starts having all these thoughts, particularly when you're really starting to change your mental diet. So when you are having those thought patterns, you have to keep nipping it in the bud. You have to keep sticking in the trash, because eventually Felicia, which is your ego when she is not agreeing with you, or he, eventually she will be quiet, because you will continuously stop those thoughts. You will halt them. You will be putting them in the fucking trash where they belong. And that is what ends up changing, so that you don't have the negative intrusive thoughts anymore. It's the repetition of the positive thinking that gets rid of the negative thinking. You have to override it. It's like, that's one of the things about manifesting that sometimes is really hard for people to initially grasp, but it is, you have to learn how to control your mind and what you allow yourself to think about. You cannot do what you've done your whole life, which is let your mind run away from you and go down all these rabbit holes and all these scenarios and all this bullshit, because that's not what you want to experience. You have to maintain more control over you and your brain, period. How to stop worrying about future and what's going on behind the scenes. You literally tell yourself that you're a master of manifesting, that you can have anything that you want. You step into your power every single day and you stay laser focused on what you want, because worrying about the future, it's something else that your ego does. Is it's like, what if this happens? What if that happens? I have to have 500 different plans in case XYZ happens. We're used to being taught that way, and sometimes it's still not a bad thing, right? You want to have backup plans or what have you. It's like packing an extra pair of clothes. Sometimes you just do. But it's different when you're obsessively worrying about the future and obsessively thinking about what's going on behind the scenes. Don't worry about what's going on behind the scenes. You don't need to know what's going on behind the scenes. All you need to know is that movement's always happening. So every time you start worrying about the future, say, nope, I'm getting this. This is what my future is going to be. Or nope, I know that movement's happening. Movement's always happening, whether I see it or not, because I'm a master at manifesting. I manifest shit all the time. That's why I always tell you to manifest other stuff. because it builds your confidence in manifesting, and then you're not like worrying all the time about if there's movement because you know that it happens. Intrusive thoughts, same thing. Felicia, she's acting up. She's trying to protect you. You got to put those thoughts in the trash where they belong and keep swatting them down. The more you swat them down like an annoying fly with a fly swatter, the faster it'll go away. If you've got a room full of 10 flies and you swat at them, eventually the flies are going to be dead. Just like those negative ass thoughts eventually are going to be in the trash. They're not going to be popping in your head anymore because you would have swatted them down enough that they won't want to come up. Easily losing focus. You can affirm things like, I'm always able to maintain focus on what I want. I always think positive thoughts in line with my manifestation. I'm in control of my mind at all times. Literally affirm for what you want. If you feel like you're always having intrusive thoughts, I always have positive thoughts about my manifestation. I always think positive thoughts. Positive thoughts are all that go through my mind. I'm easily able to maintain control, clarity, and focus with my mind. Affirm things like that because you can change how your mind works too. Everything is malleable, including you. Inner conversations. What are inner conversations? Inner conversations are the conversation that Felicia's having in your head or any imaginary conversations that you're having with anybody else. I kind of see it as both, to be honest, because it's a form of inner conversation. So if you're imagining a conversation with your specific person or anyone that would be involved in your manifestation, or you're hearing people tell you things that are not in line with what you want your self-concept to be, those are all form of inner conversations. Inner conversations can also be your inner ramblings about what you think about yourself, or Felicia telling you like, no, your specific person doesn't like you, or, no, you're ugly, no, you're not confident, no, you'll never be able to earn any money. All those things can kind of be inner conversations that's going on in your head. If you want to have inner conversations that are in line with what you want, then you need to decide that you're going to focus solely on only what you want. You change those inner conversations because you allow yourself to be the observer. And when you observe yourself having conversations that are not in line with what you want, you put a stop to it, put it in the trash, and say, no, these are the conversations that I'm going to have. These are the thoughts that I'm going to have. I'm going to think along the lines of this, and change your inner conversation in your mind right then. Checking social media or the 3D, that is getting control of yourself. Stop looking at the 3D for confirmation, because it can impact with your mental diet also, because you're looking, you're trying to see if what you're doing is working. And if you don't have the right tools in your toolkit to be able to deal with if you see something that you don't want to see, or that whether it is you feeling like you see lack of movement, or whether it is that you feel like you see something that's not in line with your manifestation, you need to be able to deal with that. So stop checking on the social media or the 3D. I've had to do it personally. So initially, it's a habit that you have to break. It's a habit that you have to stop yourself. It's like any other habit, takes a few days to get into that rhythm to where you stop checking it, but the first day or two might seem a little hard, and then boom, before you know it, it's like you haven't looked at their shit for a week or two, or you're not looking at the 3D for a week or two. Yes, I understand the temptations there to want to check on the 3D, and sometimes we do, but just be prepared that if you do that if the response isn't what you want, that you're able to deal with that with the tools in your toolkit that I've reviewed in the previous videos. If you are not prepared, or you're going to be downward spiraling and be on the floor for a fucking week, then don't do it, because don't put yourself through that mental anguish. Remember, our mind always wants to be right. And if we have assumptions that we're going to see that the SP has a third party, or that the SP is out with doing something that you don't want, or that, that you're being ignored, whatever that it is, if you keep looking, then you could manifest seeing that. If you're always thinking, that's what I'm going to see, that's what I'm going to see, don't put yourself in that boat. Don't put yourself into seeing something that you don't want just so that you can see what the hell's going on in the 3D. There's always movement. Ignore the 3D. The 3D is a lie. As we all know, it's just an illusion because it's based on our old thoughts and assumptions, which are changeable by who? By us. So things are going wrong. Your faith in the law varies. That is why I tell you guys, manifest other shit. When you're working on manifesting other stuff, you are stepping into your powers, the upper power of your reality, that you're proving to yourself that manifestation does work, and you learn how it works for you, because we're all individualized and we all have our own assumptions. Some people, visualize. Some people like the telephone technique. Some people like affirming. Some people like rampaging. Nikki does the manifestation evaluation and tells you what styles are more likely going to be effective for you based on your personality. Well, you learn how the law works for you, and then by manifesting other stuff, and that causes your confidence in being a manifester to skyrocket. And then your faith in it doesn't really waver or isn't shook as much just because you see something unfavorable in the 3D. It's like, oh, hell no, I've got this list of stuff that I've manifested. I know I'm powerful. I don't care about this thing over here. You say, is looking for success stories or rewatching videos, is that telling your subconscious that you don't have your desire? Remember, everything in your reality is what it implies to you. I think that if your attitude is I love seeing success stories because it bolsters my faith and it makes me feel powerful, or it helps me to understand more, that's one thing. If it's out of lack and desperation because you're like, I need to see a success story because I don't believe I'm going to get my stuff, if you're thinking that way, you're just reaffirming that to yourself. So change how you think about seeing success stories. Be like, I love seeing success stories because when I see other people manifesting stuff, that tells me that I can manifest anything that I want to and that I'm powerful too. So just change how you see it and look at it that way, that, hey, every time I see a success story, that means I manifest what I want to, or etc. Don't look at it as that it's reaffirming your negative stuff, and don't look at it as a place of lack of, oh, like I need to see that everybody's getting it because I don't believe I'm going to get it. I hope that that makes sense. And then someone's asking, TV shows, movies not in line with desires, like, should you watch them? Personal decision, up to you. If you're watching something on TV and all you're thinking about is like, oh, my specific person is an ass like that too, or my specific person is nasty like that too, I wouldn't personally watch it. Because if it's making you think of the old story and having you be stuck in the old story, I personally wouldn't want to go down that road. I'd be like, nope, not paying attention to this shit. I'm going to go ahead and pay attention to what I want to pay attention to, which is getting my manifestation. So it depends what it implies to you, and it depends where it makes your mind go. But sometimes when you're in a certain part of your manifestation journey, it can make you think of your old story. Not favorable. I would, put it right there in the trash. Dreams. So people are asking about dreams, opposing dreams. Remember, you assign a meaning to everything, assign meanings that work for you. If you're having opposing dreams, a lot of times we like to tell ourselves that it is just our subconscious purging out our old thoughts and assumptions, making room for the new shit. That's what I like to tell myself. That's an assumption I like to hold when I have an opposing dream. If you like that assumption, go ahead and make that your assumption for your reality. Someone else asked, dreaming of SP and you together, and then your dreams went away and you're wondering what that means. It can mean whatever you want it to mean. I would just be like, you know what? My brain knows that it's coming. I'm just not dreaming about it right now. It's impressed, period. And I would continue to affirm and persist. I most certainly wouldn't assign a negative meaning to that. I would assign something positive, like my subconscious is impressed. It's already in there. I was having a lot of dreams about it, and now I'm just dreaming about the other stuff I want, or I'm just dreaming about other stuff. But I already have it. I already have my manifestation. It's here right now. Like, don't be like, oh, I stopped dreaming about it. That means I'm not going to get it. No, I wouldn't tell myself anything remotely similar to that. Expectation versus assumption. So I've said in previous videos that to me, expectation is similar to assumption. An assumption is literally a belief in something without proof. So you are thinking that it's true, even though you have no proof that it's true. An expectation is more like you believe that something will happen. So a lot of times I use expectation in like when there would be action involved, like I'm expecting a text message. I am expecting, to go out to dinner or to go on this vacation, or that my relationship is going to be amazing. And, when you assume something, you can be like, you can assume something that it's true without having proof. Like, you're assuming they're madly in love with you. You can also assume that they're going to call you too. That there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that a lot of times when I've used it in the example that when you expect that your specific person is going to call you because you expect it, which means you believe that it will happen, like it is going to happen, that means it has to happen because you're already believing it's going to happen. It's very similar to an assumption. Very small difference, as you can hear. It's believing something without proof is an assumption, or believing something will happen is an expectation. Very similar in meaning. So yeah, that to me is the difference. Hope that made sense. Affirming. I have, good grief, several, like a ton, 10 questions that were about affirming. So I'm going to go through these off, of course, rapid style. How long to affirm in a day minimum? There is no set time period. I personally recommend to my clients that you affirm first thing in the morning for your manifestation abilities, your self-concept, and your main manifestation, your main desire. And I also recommend that you affirm your main desire when you're going to bed. I think that if you have time that your mind is idle, it's not a bad idea to affirm, particularly if you're newer in the journey. Don't do it out of desperation and lack, but like, if you're having negative thoughts, affirm and persist. Like, change your thoughts and affirm and persist. If you think of your manifestation, that is the time that I say to affirm and persist. Like, back it up with affirming. If you feel like affirming, then affirming. There isn't a minimum set of time. I would say at the very bare minimum, morning, night, and when you think of your manifestation, whether it's a positive or negative thought, reinforce a positive thought, flip the negative thought. That to me is bare minimum. There isn't a set amount of time. It's all individualized on each of our own journeys. Repeated affirmations versus feeling it real in a mental scene. You have to understand that we are all different personalities. Different things work for different people. And that's what I was saying earlier with Nikki's evaluation and figuring out what works for you in your reality based on, your personality type and how you manifest. If you want to affirm and that feels really good to you and you're keeping your thoughts in line with the manifestation, affirm. If you like visualizing a scene, which is still thinking, because affirming is thinking, but it's repeating, specific sentences that you choose. Visualizing a scene is still a thought. Just, visualization is a short scene, having an audio, a short scene. It's not very long, but it's still a thought, and it's a thought that would imply that you have your manifestation. It's still thinking. It's still thinking about your manifestation. One is using words, one is using pictures. And it depends on you. Some people don't like to visualize. They don't feel connected when they visualize. They feel like it's forced and they enjoy affirming. Some people like scripting. Some people really like visualizing and feel like they manifest very effectively that way. So it's personalized. I wouldn't say that one is significantly better than the other because some people don't visualize at all and they affirm, and some people visualize and do, you know what I'm saying? It's each person. Need to speak affirmations out loud or in my head. You can do either. You want it to be a thought. So when you're thinking about it, and that's in your head. When you're speaking it, if you're concentrating on what you're saying, then you can speak it. How is it more comfortable to you? Some people like thinking it in their head. Some people like saying it out loud, but you have to make sure if you're doing it out loud that you're actually thinking about what you're saying and not just like lip syncing to music. You don't want it to be like vain affirming. Not feeling the urge to affirm, how to know if subconscious is impressed other than what your dreams show. I would say that one of the ways that you know your subconscious is impressed is if you're getting, you would start potentially seeing partial manifestations or birds. Or if you think about your manifestation, what is truly your first thought or what is your expectation? If your first thought when you think about your specific person is that he or she's madly in love with you, you're in a committed relationship, whatever it is that you're affirming, I'd say your subconscious is impressed. If you have to remind yourself of what you want because your first thought of your specific person is not what you're affirming, I would say that your mind is probably not impressed if your first thought isn't what you're affirming, or not, at least not completely impressed. That doesn't mean that you're not partially, but as far as impression goes, that's what it would mean to me. Affirming in past tense, like he asked me to be his girlfriend or he's going to ask me to be his girlfriend. You're wanting to know which tense to use. What does it imply to you? If you're saying he's going to ask me to be his girlfriend and that to you implies that you don't have it yet, I don't think I'd affirm that, because that's different than saying I'm going to have an amazing wedding, because your wedding, maybe that's something you're planning. You're already in that relationship. You know you're going to get married. But if you're like, oh, he's going to ask me out, that implies you're not in a relationship. Or if you're affirming for an end goal where you're in a relationship, that's not what I would affirm. I would affirm, that we're in an amazing committed relationship. He loves being my boyfriend. That's how I would affirm. You can do past tense if you want, but it's whatever it implies to you. I usually am just like, I'm in a loving committed relationship with SP and SP's madly in love with me, etc. I say it like it's happening right now. Parrot affirming. Will it work or is it a waste of energy? Are you talking about vain affirming where you're just randomly repeating words and you're not paying attention to it? Because you have to be paying attention to your thoughts. If you're like affirming like you're singing along with some music and you're doing something else, you're not paying attention to what you're thinking. Remember, your thoughts create. So you have to pay attention to what you're saying if you're actually speaking it, as in affirming out loud. If you're just randomly saying a bunch of shit and you're not concentrating on it, well, you're not focusing your thoughts on what you want. You're just doing some blithering. I would say that I would pay attention to what I'm saying because you want to actually be affirming. Some say you don't have to believe your affirmations, and others say that you must feel it real. I personally think that you just have to believe it's possible, that your manifestation is possible. Like you believe that it's possible for you to be in a relationship with this person. You believe that it's possible to get a certain job or, have money come to you, etc. Or that you believe it's possible that you would buy a specific house or buy a house that meets your requirements. You just have to believe it's possible to me and affirm and persist for what you want and take inspired action should you be guided to do so, because you'll feel a push to do something, or you'll just do something that seems natural and that's your inspired action. As far as feeling it real, I think that sometimes feeling it real is discussed more like your affirmation should feel natural to you. The scene you create should feel natural to you. That when you're affirming those things, that you may temporarily feel it real, or it feels natural to you, as in feeling real when you're affirming. I don't think that you have to be necessarily in a state where you always feel like your manifestation is completely real. Now, your reality is going to work however you dictate it to work. So if in your reality, you have the assumption that you have to feel it real to get your manifestation, guess what's going to be mirrored back to you, reflected back to you? That you have to feel it real to get what you want. So what is your assumption about it? My assumption is I just have to believe it's possible, affirm and persist, keep my mind laser focused, and that I'm going to get it. I've manifested shit that I didn't actually think that I would get, period. That I said as a joke, showed up. Did I believe it was possible? Of course I did. Did I think I was actually going to get it? No. Was I feeling it real? No. So in my reality, I don't feel like I have to feel it real, because that's not the way that my assumption about my reality is. So remember, your assumptions dictate everything, including everything about you, how you're treated, and even how your reality works. So what assumption do you want to have about it? That's what I have to say about that. You're struggling to visualize. Can you just affirm? Of course you can, because there are different ways that people learn to manifest based on their personality. Scripting, rampaging, affirming. Some people are, visualizers. Some people use a telephone technique. We all have different ways that our brain works, and that, I'm an auditory person. And I'm kind of a little extra, so it's probably not a shocker that I'm like an exaggerated rampager as one of my affirmation types. Of course not. How to choose affirmations should be like you would tell a best friend, and you question if that's natural or not and how not to question it. So we suggest to people to create affirmations like how you would tell a friend, because they should be how you would speak. So in other words, if you were affirming for contact and you said, SP's constantly contacting me, but you would never say that, that's not going to feel natural to you. But maybe you're more into slang and you're like, oh, SP's always blowing up my damn phone. If that feels natural to you, if that's how you would say to a friend that a dude was contacting you all the time, go with that. If you speak, more grammatically correct, and it would make more sense or be more natural for you to say, oh, they're always calling me, they're always texting me, then say it that way. That's what we mean by how you would say it to a friend, because it would be how you would tell your friend that you were getting them, meaning how you would naturally speak, because each of us uses different types of speech depending on where we live in this world. There's different dialects, there's different slang, etc. And so how would you personally say it? And as far as, you having this thing that you're questioning if it's natural or not and how not to question, you're overthinking stuff. Stop overthinking the process. Manifestation, we're born manifestors. Manifestation is actually simple. We're making it difficult because now we're consciously doing it. So we're overthinking everything that we do, fearing that we're going to make a mistake and therefore not going to get our manifestation. You cannot not get your manifestation. You can delay it if you're thinking a bunch of negative thoughts all the time, 24/7. But if you're affirming and persisting for what you want and you have a clean mental diet, you will get your manifestation. Sometimes things have to move. We don't always know what they are. Depends what your thoughts are about your personal 3D reality, but you're going to get your manifestation, period. So stop overthinking the process. It's easier than what you're making it. Are you in sets while drawing? Can you affirm while you draw or while you do that? I don't know if personally you're in sets while drawing. How do you feel when you're drawing? Do you feel like the drawing is occupying one part of your mind while you can concentrate on something else? Because when you're affirming, you want to make sure that you're actually able to concentrate on the thought that you're either saying out loud or having in your head, because that's when you're affirming, you're concentrating on the thought. Your thoughts are what create. So if you're drawing and all your attention is to what you're drawing and you're kind of willy-nilly occasionally thinking about your affirming, you can do that, but it's not going to be, I guess you could say, like your attention isn't on it enough to, you don't want to be a faint affirming. That doesn't mean that you can't occasionally stop and affirm, draw, stop and affirm, but it really depends how much effort. When I do homework, it takes too much of my mental energy to read and do homework to affirm at the same time. I can't do them both at the same time because one or the other is not going to have my full attention. That's what I'll say about that. I don't watch TV and affirm. Can I wash dishes and affirm? Yes. Can I take a shower and affirm? Yes, because those are mundane tasks that don't require, the same type of attention. And that's just kind of the way that it is. So I was asked about my favorite or funniest manifestations. I have a quick list. My favorite manifestation was changing my family member's emotional state. I've loved the fact that I've manifested and continue to manifest the easiest shifts. I shut down an international test platform for an exam that I had, and it actually ended up moving. My test date and time moved to the usual date and time that I liked. I didn't even affirm for that. I just complained that I didn't want to take my test on that day. And lo and behold, when I went to take it, test platform was shut down for like 12 hours internationally. It was tweeted about, this whole big deal. I've had grades changed, I think twice at least. My son's car deal was easy and it was just what we both wanted. He got in like the exact money he wanted for his trade, his payment where he wanted it. He got an amazing car. Like it was perfect. I affirmed for just like 2 or 3 times that I would make $1,000 a day, and it took a day and a half, but I suddenly started making $1,000 a day. I actually had to shut it off because it made me too busy. I couldn't handle how much work, work that I was getting, how much coaching I was getting, and school and the other things that I do. I actually had to turn it off, which is why I know that I turn money on and off like water. I pretty much, if I want a certain amount of money, I'm just like, I want this much money, and boom, it doesn't take that long before I literally have it. I actually manifested having a family member come to my house down to a minute that I said. You can ask, I was texting with Andrea during that, and legit down to the minute that I literally texted her, and that was hella dope. I also wanted a band. I knew 2 people that were in a band. I'd never seen them perform. They were doing a Facebook show, and I happened to go on Facebook. They were live, and I was like, oh, I want them to play a certain band, which was the Beatles. Last song they played, Beatles, of course it was. And one of my favorite stories is my calendar story. So my mom bought a calendar for my son that was a daily calendar that's all about swearing. Like pretty much it has swearing on every day of the week. And I thought it was hella dope. And I'm like, I want that one. And my mom's like, I only got one for, your son. I didn't get you that one. I got you something else. When my mom got to the bottom of the box, there was a second calendar, no shitting you, in that box for me. My mom ordered one, but yet there were 2 of them in the box. Yay me, got a calendar. I forgot to show it to you last week, but it says, you're a fucking badass. Of course you are. Of course you are. That's why I love this calendar. That was one of my funnest manifestation stories. One of the other questions you guys asked was manifestations not showing up after months of affirming and visualizing, and you feel like you're doing it right. So don't forget that things are going to unfold in the most natural way possible to you. I mean, it's not like we don't expect if you're manifesting a specific person and you're broken up, that you're going to wake up one morning and they're going to be in bed with you, right? So it's going to unfold in a natural way to you, how you think that relationships get back together and things like that. And so bear that in mind, that you have other assumptions that are coming into play when you're manifesting. Like if you think that someone's got to learn a couple of lessons before they would get back together in a relationship, you may see things like that. A lot of times when people feel like they're doing everything right and they're technically not. Like a lot of my clients, when I evaluate what they're affirming, sometimes they're affirming stuff that implies they're not together. Like they might be affirming something like, oh, you realized how much I meant to you and came running back to me. Every time you affirm something like that, you're reaffirming that you're not together. Don't affirm shit that talks about like, you realized how much you missed me and came running back, or you came back to me, or you're so happy now that, if you have anything that's like implying that you're not together, like look at your affirmations and see if it implies that you guys aren't together. That's one thing. I've known other people that they were doing a visualization and it involved where someone was telling, and I know that she's going to recognize this, but you know, a friend was telling her specific person, oh, you guys would be great together, something to that effect. And you know, you should get back together. It was just something to that effect. Still, having that type of visualization keeps you in the old story. And it's realizing things like that. Like when you see a couple on the street, is your first thought, we're not together. When you're thinking of chores around the house, is your first thought, I'm having to do it because they're not here. Like, what is your mental diet truly? Are you complaining to your friends? Are you constantly looking at the 3D to where you're manifesting more looking at the 3D? Like, what are your actual thoughts about your manifestation? What are you affirming? What are you visualizing? Are you visualizing a damned reunion scene? Throw that shit in the trash. Right there where it belongs. I do not advocate for visualizing reunion scenes. Why? Because it implies you're not together and it is keeping you in the old story, and it's telling your God self how your manifestation has to come to you. Don't slam the door in your God self's face and give them a keyhole and be like, my specific person has to show up with flowers, a bow tie, clean shaven, with an apology, begging on their hands and knees at 8:30 at night, and they need to wear this. Because you're like, instead of having the door wide open where you could have run into each other at the store, they could have picked up the phone and called you, you could have ran into them at a party, whatever. Now it's like they have to show up at your house with the flowers looking like this, and they have to have these apologies. Like you could get the manifestation like this and you crammed it down to this itty bitty one way. No. So a lot of times people discover that they're doing stuff like that. They're keeping themselves stuck in the old story. Been persisting. When contact happened, it was the opposite. You got movement. Remember, your hardened assumptions are what you're going to see. So you affirmed and persisted, and it was easier for your brain to initially do the buy-in of having the contact, but you still have to work on what they're going to say. And sometimes when you get movement, it doesn't look like this reunion that you have in your head. Remember, things are going to progress in the most natural way possible. So maybe you have contact, it doesn't initially go the way you want, and you continue to affirm and persist, and they start conforming, they're coming forward. It could happen all at once as a snap of a finger, and it may take a hot minute based on your thoughts and assumptions and which assumptions you override first. Because I've seen a lot of people, they get contact, they may even get romance, some friends with benefits, but they have such a hard assumption that their SP doesn't want to commit that they keep manifesting no commitment. And so that's the one that they have to work on harder, because they have a hardened assumption that their SP is never going to commit to them. So you could be experiencing that. You believed your desires, no movement. You're manifesting weight loss, and you're consistent and strict with your mental diet. But what are your assumptions around weight loss? Because you can affirm, I'm a perfect size 12, I weigh 140 pounds, like whatever it is that you're affirming. But if you truly have a hardened assumption that if you eat a piece of cake, you're going to be overweight, then that assumption can continue to override your weight loss initially. So that's why we suggest when you're doing weight loss that you make sure that you have affirmations that are like, I can eat whatever that I want and be a perfect size blank, or no matter what I do, I'm always a perfect size blank. Like, have it be encompassing, because the different areas, because we are brainwashed into believing that if you eat a piece of cake, you're going to be heavy, right? Or if you don't run 5 miles a day, you're going to be heavy. So sometimes we have to overcome that a little bit, and you might be, having the buy-in that you're this perfect size, but you have to override that other part of you that's like, oh, I'm eating cake, I'm overweight. Like, what do you think every time you eat? Are you thinking if I eat this, I'm going to be fat? Because if those are your thoughts, that's what's going to continue to be mirrored back to you, reflected back to you. A lot of times people think their mental diet is strict, but they're not paying attention to Felicia in here. They're not actually listening to their inner thoughts and conversations and being the observer to know what they're actually thinking. Start paying attention to what you're actually thinking. Sometimes it helps to write a daily log about like what your thoughts are, just to help you to bring your attention to what you are actually thinking, because your dominant thoughts are what's going to manifest. And a lot of times our dominant thoughts belong in the trash, and that's why we're not getting what we want to get. Last question. Self-concept manifests faster because of being more confident. So you're thinking that when you lose weight, you'll manifest faster. I do not recommend to make one manifestation dependent on another. Don't manifest, don't affirm things or have assumptions that when I lose weight, I'm going to get my manifestation. When I lose weight, I'll get things faster. You know, when I look prettier, I get things faster. When X happens, that's when Z can happen, or etc. Do you see what I'm saying here? A lot of times we make manifestations conditional. Don't. They're all separate. So you can have an amazing self-concept without losing weight. You'll probably feel overall better. And I'm not saying it won't be a boost in confidence, but I wouldn't really have a lot of thoughts that, like, I would be like, I manifest hella fast now. I manifest extremely fast no matter what. I always get what I want effortlessly and quickly. I wouldn't put too much thought of like when I'm skinny is when I'm going to manifest faster or etc. Do you see what I'm saying? Don't put a lot of stock in that. It may be true, but I wouldn't want to try to have that assumption because I don't like to try to have manifestations conditional on each other. And I don't want to give my power away to another part of manifestation. Do you see what I'm saying? I like to have all my power and not make that dependent on what I have or what I look like on any given day. So I hope this answers your questions. You know, as usual, I'm going to be dropping more of these videos. Keep a lookout for my post where you can put your questions that I'll go through. This video is going to be probably about 35 minutes long. Answered a bunch of stuff. Hopefully this gave you guys some clarity. And so anyways, have an amazing day. Keep manifesting. All of you guys are powerful as fuck. You're each masters of manifesting in your own reality. You can have anything that you want. Don't let anyone tell you anything different. Continue to step in your power every single morning by affirming for your manifestation abilities and your self-concept. Affirm and persist and get your fucking shit, period. Peace out for now, and I will check in with you next week.